chemical health risk assessment is conducted with the purpose of enabling decisions to be made on appropriate control measures, induction and training of employees, monitoring and health surveillance activities as may be required to protect the health of employees who may be exposed to chemicals hazardous to health at work. A chemical health risk assessment has the following objectives. A. To identify the hazards posed by each chemical substance used, stored, handled, or transported within the place of work. B. To evaluate the degree of exposure of employees to the chemical hazardous to health, either through inhalation, skin absorption, or ingestion. C. To evaluate the adequacy of existing control measures. D. To conclude on the significance of the health risk posed by chemicals hazardous to health, and E. To recommend further appropriate control measures to prevent or reduce risk. There are two types of assessment. First, generic assessment. Generic assessment may be used where a chemical hazardous to health or a group of chemical hazardous to health are used in the same way in several workplaces, provided that the control measures in place are similar. It should be emphasized that generic assessment is only valid for work activities that are clearly similar with comparable level of risk and which have the same type of control measures to control the risk. Second, full assessment. For other situations, a full assessment should be conducted for each and every workplace where chemicals hazardous to health are used. A report must be made of the assessment and presented to the employer.
Hazard, risk and safety. We all hear these terms on a daily basis. So and so a chemical, physical or a biological agent poses a risk. This or that product is a hazard, or behaving a certain way is unsafe. A lot of the time, hazard and risk are freely used to mean the same thing. However, they are not. Hazard is the potential to cause harm. Risk, on the other hand, is the likelihood of harm in defined circumstances.
The exposure to potentially harmful chemical, physical, or biological agents that occurs as a result of one's occupation.
Chapter 4. Deciding the assessor. First is about the assessment team. The assessment team is headed by a registered assessor and assisted by one or more of the following if appropriate. First, the company safety and health officer or safety engineer. Second, the company's doctor, a registered occupational health doctor. Third, the company's process or chemical engineer or chemist. Fourth, an experienced and knowledgeable member of the Safety and Health Committee. Fifth, an industrial or occupational health nurse. The second part is about competency of an assessor. The would-be assessor should have the abilities to A. Interpret the information in the Chemical Safety Data Sheet, CSDS, and labels. B. To understand the hazard classification as prescribed by the Occupational Safety and Health classification, packaging, and labeling of hazardous chemicals based on Regulation 1997. C. Observe the condition of work and foresee potential problems. D. Communicate effectively with employees, contract workers, managers, specialists, and others. E. Draw all the information together in a systematic way to form valid conclusion about exposure and risk. F. Report the finding accurately to all parties concerned. The third part is about duties of an assessor. A. To carry out assessment of health risks arising from the use of chemical hazards at the workplace. B. To furnish a report of the assessment to employer of a place of work within 1 month of assessment. C. To inform the respective employer of the immediate danger discovered without any delay. D. Make recommendation on the necessity to control exposure of employee and accidental emission of a chemical hazardous to health. Carry out a health surveillance program. Conduct exposure monitoring and institute a training program for employees. E. To present his finding and recommendation to the employer upon completion of the assessment report. F. To submit within 30 days upon completion of the assessment a summary to the Director of the nearest DOSH office and forward a copy to the Director General. The last part is about specialist advice. For certain cases, assistance of a specialist may be required. The common specialists who may be consulted upon may include, but it is not limited to the following. A. An industrial hygienist, which is an expert on the exposure evaluation and control. B. An occupational health physician, which is expertise on health surveillance program. C. A hygiene technician, and expertise on the inspection and testing of local exhaust ventilation system and the monitoring of airborne contaminant. D. A toxicologist, which is an expert on chemical toxicology.
For this part of chapter, the discussion is on the assigning of workers into similar risk group or work unit so that the assessment could be conducted for each work unit where there are exposure to chemical hazards to health. Okay, what is work unit? A work unit is essentially a group of workers doing similar tasks, as for example having similar potential for exposure, whether in one work area covering several work areas and exposed to the same chemical hazards to health. Categorization of the group of work unit that need to be considered from are such below, which is production employees, ancillary or support employees, contractors on site, visitors, supervisors and managers, students, and lastly, office workers. Next, for the work unit identification, Employees and other workers should be assigned work unit based on the same chemical substances used or handled and carrying out similar job tasks. The step to categorize a work unit is as follows. First, conduct a walkthrough inspection to identify all persons who might be exposed. This might include persons who work directly with the chemical, work near or pass through areas in which the chemical is used, produced, stored, transported or disposed. Enter a confined space in which the chemical might be present, or perform maintenance or other work in area where the chemical might be present. Then, the second step is to get the list of job title groups for each department or work area, and from each job title group, identify the chemical hazardous to health they were using or exposed to, the task carried out and the location within the work area. Next, talk to supervisors and employees at each work location regarding practical information about work practices and procedure, and from that, characterize the work unit as follows. And for the last step, the group together and considered as a single work unit. Chemical hazardous to health used or exposed to, and the tasks are similar for a group of job title groups are grouped together. Okay, that's all from me, Muhammad Firdaus, and let's continue to the next part. Bye bye.